Want crisp, professional-looking garden edges without spending a ton? In this video, I'll show you how we edge our flower beds using simple tools and easy techniques. Whether you're tackling an overgrown border or starting from scratch, this process delivers a big visual impact with just a few steps. We'll walk you through the tools we use and share tips to get your beds looking sharp and ready for the season. Hi, it's Steph, and let's get into it. Clean lines on a planting bed makes a big visual impact. It defines the space and creates that crisp separation between the lawn and planting spaces. With just a few basic tools, you can get that professional looking edge. While I usually love a naturally curved border, sometimes a clean straight line is the way to go. Here's some footage of my husband George using a few simple tools to dial in a straight edge on the side of our home.
So we know the foundation is perfectly straight. So all I'm going to do is measure off the foundation at the top and at the bottom, and I'm gonna string a line. And that's gonna be my reference for cutting this edge in.
We use this half moon edger that has a serrated edge, and it works really well to cut into your sod. We then cut sections, like George is showing there, across, so that we make it smaller, more manageable chunks to be able to lift those pieces of sod. We then go in with one of these flathead shovels. This is a spade, to sort of slice underneath the sod, and we try to get it as thin as possible, so that we're not losing too much of our soil. And then we can dispose of it. Or if you have another area in the garden that you need to patch up the grass, this would be a good option as well. You see? And it comes out in more manageable pieces. So that is how we edge. So as you can see, this bed had gotten pretty messy and definitely was in need of some work. And so now we're mulching, and you can see that there is some cardboard under the mulch there. So what we're doing is, because this spot I don't plan on planting in, I want to keep the weeds down as long as possible. So we're using my favorite type of cardboard for this application and for sheet mulching, and that is 4x4 squares of pallet cardboard. And back when we did our sheet mulching video, I did say that this was a Hooked and Rooted exclusive, and I'm going to stand by that because I have not seen anyone else use this 4x4 perfect square of pallet cardboard. It has no holes, no tape, no staples. It's awesome. So if you can go to any of the large box store retailers, and between the cases of water, they usually have those, they're more than willing to give it to you if you ask. And it makes a really great underlayment under mulch, especially for large expanses like this, where you just want to put your mulch down and not worry about things.
Next, we're gonna dial in this edge that's a little overgrown on this tree. And all I'm gonna use is the half moon edger and a piece of rope. I tied a loose knot around the trunk of the tree. It's loose because I don't want it to bind as I'm going around the tree. And I have a tighter knot on the half moon edger. So now all I have to do is make sure you put a little tension on it, and I'm gonna go around and cut in my line. All right, I'm done cutting in, so I'm just gonna untie it here from the tree, and I'm gonna switch over to the spade shovel. All right, now I'm gonna cut in some slices right around, just so I have some manageable chunks that I can pull out. So now I'm using the shovel to go right under the sod and pull out these chunks. Come check this out over here. We're gonna use this grass to patch some spots. All right, right over here we have a couple of areas of grass that have died off, and I was going to scuff it up and add some seed, but considering we have these chunks of grass, what I'm gonna do is just cut this open and use these as plugs to fix the grass. And I'm just eyeballing this. That's one piece. Now I'm gonna use a hori-hori just to slice up another piece. This is a garden knife. Comes in handy for situations like this. All right, I'm gonna do two pieces here. Actually, I'm just gonna cut this a little bit. I could have been a little more precise with this, but you'll grow in. And in a couple of weeks, you'll never know I touched it. I'm just going to use this kind of as a template. By the way, this garden knife is made by Vigo. All right. So we are going to get some rain this week, but not today. So I'm going to water in those patches. All right, so now let's go back to the tree ring and wrap that up. Okay, I removed all the sections of grass, and now we have a nice round circle around that trunk. Now I'm going to add some mulch. And during the season, to maintain that crisp edge, what I usually do is I get a weed whacker and I flip it upside down. There is a learning curve to this because you need to balance the weed whacker. And what you would do is slowly, you would walk the whole curve and dial in that edge to make it nice and crisp.
We've cut a straight edge, we've also cut a tree ring, and now we're going to talk about curves. Now, one of my favorite shapes for flower and planting beds is curves. And the best hack that we have found to get the curviest lines is through use of a garden hose. Because garden hoses have a lot of length and they're very flexible. So it's really easy to lay out your hose and play with different shapes and curves. And that's exactly what we did to shape this planting bed. Once we laid out our hose and we had the curve how we liked it, what we did was take our half moon edger and cut along the hose to get a nice gradual curve. And speaking of curves, if you have a desire to add more planting space to your garden, I have a bonus segment that I'll add here that shows you an unconventional way to achieve that. Expanding upon an existing tree ring. This is not something that I thought about initially, but now I'm looking at every tree ring as a new opportunity. Now, when you plant a tree, you pretty much just make a circle, you plant your tree, you put some mulch and maybe some edging and call that project done. And it can be. But you can also expand upon that and create a bigger planting area. I've done this twice in my garden in the last couple of years. The first time was over by my driveway where I have 2 Japanese maples planted. They are blood goods and they have beautiful red foliage. And initially I just had 2 of them. And a year or 2 later, I thought about maybe putting a couple more plantings in that space. And I started off with a couple of ivory halo dogwoods planted in the center, but they looked a little silly. And when I looked at the way that they were shaped, it sort of looked like a pool cue, that thing that you use to rack up your balls when you're playing pool. And I did not like the look of it. So what I ended up doing was adding some edging, and we made a really large island bed. And slowly I've been changing out the plantings and tweaking it. And I'm now finally getting to a point where I really like the way that it looks. And I think it turned out beautifully. So that was one example. And in my backyard, I also had a bloodgood Japanese maple that was by itself in a tree ring that I decided to add yet another planting bed with that tree as the center point. So I went ahead and I expanded from that point, and now I had more space to add some more dwarf conifers as well as some perennials. I hope that these tips were helpful and shows that with just a few simple tools, you can really shape up your garden for the season. I'll put links to all of the tools that we use down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.